Coach, what are your thoughts on morality? Oh boy, do you think God is the source of morality, or is morality something we can objectively deduce? I ask because I know you watch Sam Harris. That's from Cremidis. Well, Cremidis, look, I'll tell you something. I don't. I find that I've said before. Sam Harris is a very intelligent guy, but I don't find he's a very wise person. I think he said some incredibly ignorant things, especially about Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Okay. As a matter of fact, Juan Cole, a scholar in Islam, he wrote a beautiful article. He wrote a 2-part article saying everything, literally this is the name of the article. Like I'm paraphrasing here, but it's literally everything Sam Harris says about Islam is wrong. And Juan Cole, a PhD in Islamic studies, an Orientalist, he challenged Sam to a debate on Twitter. He said, look, what you're saying is total propaganda. You're not reading contextually. You're taking verses out of context. You never quote the Quran in its proper context. You slander Islam, you slander Judaism, you slander Christianity, bring it to the table. And he wouldn't. And he just simply won't. He said some extremely ignorant things. Now, is he a logical person? Is he a rational person? Yes. Is he extremely biased? Yes. Is he profiting after 9/11? After 9/11, there's been a wave of Islamophobia. Literally, 1 to 3 anti-Muslim books have been printed a day since 9/11. A day. Okay, there's lots of anti-Islamic propaganda. Now, they've done this with Judaism in the past. They've done this also with a variety of races and nations. Okay, they've done this in the past, having false propaganda. It is not true that his most ignorant statement, the statement I have the most trouble with, he says. Sam Harris says, and I'm going to get to your question, okay? I just want to tell you where I stand with this whole Sam Harris thing. He says, look, you're either like Al-Qaeda, because that's Islam, or you're a fake Muslim. If you're not like Al-Qaeda, you're not really a Muslim, because Islam is really just what Al-Qaeda does. So he's saying if you're really a Muslim, if you're an authentic Muslim, you're an Al-Qaeda guy. That's what you think. That you've got to be bloodthirsty and deranged. Now, if that is the case, why is it that 99.999% of all the scholars in Islam, both Muslim and non-Muslim scholars, completely disagree with him? Say that Sam Harris, who's not a scholar in theology or Islam by any means, they're all saying, look, this guy's totally wrong. Doesn't know what he's talking about. Why won't he quote the Quran? He never quotes the Quran. He very rarely mentions anything directly about the Quran because he knows that any verse he quotes and he tries to take it out of context, he's going to get bombarded by the context of when these verses were released, revealed, and why were they revealed, and what happened before and after, etc. Just like Juan Cole did in his articles. He's saying, look, it has nothing to do with Islam. That's one reason why I don't like the guy too much. I'll be honest with you, because he spread so much Islamophobia. And my family's Muslim, my kids are Muslim. And yes, we feel the effects. So many times I get messages, hate messages, or people, cursing me or whatnot. Why? Because we're Muslim. And it's just not right. It's totally wrong. I'll tell you something. We're the most peace-loving, tranquil people. Okay, there are good Muslims, there are bad Muslims, but I'll tell you something. Al-Qaeda kills more Muslims than any other group. Okay, so we dislike Al-Qaeda more than anybody in the world. Muslims dislike Al-Qaeda more than, we're the biggest victims of Al-Qaeda and such groups. Okay, ISIS, etc. So his philosophy, listen, I've reviewed his philosophy. He's a good philosopher. He's not a great philosopher. That's my opinion. He seems to be unaware of certain key ideas. Okay, so one thing he says, look, we can use our human reason to use our rationality to find out what's right and wrong in the world. Well, he's clearly not well versed in objective morality, the idea of objective morality. I love how Jordan Peterson answered him once upon a time. He answered him and he said, what's so irrational? Because don't forget, Harris says we're going to rationally decide what's right and wrong. What's so irrational about, this is Jordan Peterson's reply, of taking what I want? What's so rational about that? It might be irrational to you, but the guy with the biggest guns, the guy with the most tanks, the guy with the most nuclear weapons, the guy with the most power, he's going to say might is right. I don't care what your rules are. Imagine tomorrow I'm the most powerful man in the world and I walk into a bank and I take the money. I take their money and they call the police and I just crush the police. Whichever way, I just, I have a larger gang than the police, and then they call the army and my gang crushes the army. If you have all the power, you can make up what's right and wrong. If God doesn't exist, this is very well established in philosophy. I don't want to get too deep into it, but listen, FYI, guys. Okay, read Nietzsche if you guys want a really heavy dose of this. If there's no God, then there's no morality. It's just whoever has the most power, he's going to decide what he'll tolerate from us. That's all it is. You have the law of the jungle. That's it. Now, Immanuel Kant, and I'm giving you a non-Muslim source, because he came to the same conclusion as many great Islamic thinkers, is that I have this innate sense of right and wrong. Now, what does it mean to have an innate sense? An innate sense, I'll teach you guys a little basic philosophy, okay? You can know something deductively. Think of like Sherlock Holmes, okay? Deductive or inductive. I don't want to split hairs here, but let's call it mathematics, okay? You're using your logic and your wits. And then you have inductive or your empirical knowledge. So for instance, you're doing an experiment, how hot does water have to get before it boils? Well, there's no logic to that. I have to go out in the world and have to experiment. That's an inductive type of reasoning. I have to go some trial and error. And now I have deductive, inductive, two types of reasoning. And now I have also something called innate knowledge. Now we have examples in philosophy of innate knowledge that are irrefutable. Okay, like for instance, the one irrefutable sense of innate knowledge is our conscious minds. We can't deny our conscious minds. Even though we have zero scientific evidence for our conscious minds, zero. Like if I open up your brain and I look inside, there's no consciousness to be observed. There's only flesh materials. There's only concrete materials to observe. And if I try to deduce that you have a conscious mind, it's impossible. The only reason I believe you have a conscious mind is because I have one myself, and that's not deduction. That's known innately. So we have this innate sense to us. And here's the big punch, okay, that I feel that a lot of philosophers forget. Is innate knowledge is not subject to cross-examination. So let me give you a, for instance, to make it more clear, okay? Let's say I tell you I have a toothache. Now, is it my tooth that's really giving me that ache? Well, that's a question for empirical research. Now, that maybe it's my gum, or maybe it's a cancer I have in my jawbone and I'm mistaking it for my tooth. That's possible. It's subject to cross-examination. If you tell me I have a pain in my tooth, and later we discover, no, it's actually your jaw that's infected, it wouldn't surprise anybody, because the person experiencing the pain made an empirical error. He assumed that it was his tooth, but it's really his jawbone. It's subject to cross-examination. Maybe the pain is psychosomatic. Maybe there's nothing wrong with his tooth and it's just something he dreamt up. He's a little bit nuts in the head, and that's also subject to cross-examination. However, here's what's not subject to cross-examination. His innate sense of pain, his experience of pain, if he's feeling pain, whether it's psychosomatic or it's the jawbone or it's not the tooth or it's the gum line or whatever it is, that is known innately. He didn't have to be, think about it, you don't have to be very rational to feel pain. You don't have to be very experimental to feel pain. You don't have to be scientific in the least to feel pain. That is known just simply intuitively. Intuitive knowledge is well understood in the circles of epistemology, is not subject to cross-examination. It is not. If you feel something directly, that's what it is. There's nothing we could do about it. We can't convince you otherwise, and there's no need to. This is your direct experience. Now, Immanuel Kant said something really profound once upon a time, and it might be lost on many of us, okay, because this is very deep stuff. Don't forget, Immanuel Kant's one of the greatest thinkers of all time. He said, look, I can't shake this sense in me that I feel that it is true that things are right and wrong, that it's not made up, that I actually see things happen in nature and I feel that, hey, that's unfair. I have this weird sense inside me. Don't forget, this is not known deductively, so I can't define it for you. It's not known empirically, so I cannot create an experiment for it. Immanuel Kant is saying, look, I only know it innately. It cannot be contested. It cannot be cross-examined. Does he really know it innately? Well, you have to look, do you feel that too? I personally do feel that. Now, when atheists or secularists or agnostics say, Look, we don't believe in that. And there is, of course, there's always two schools of thought or more. The people who disagree with this, they're going to typically tell you, look, there's nothing wrong with any activity, any human action is not right or wrong. It's just up to you guys. It's up to you to decide what's right or wrong. So if you tell them, well, what about bestiality? Yep, that could be okay. I mean, as long as society accepts it, or the guy with whoever's in charge allows it, then there's nothing wrong with that. Inherently wrong. Obviously, everybody will find it gross and disgusting. But then you find yourself in these kind of like weird situations where you basically have to say yes to everything, which philosophers on another hand reject. Not all philosophers, of course not, but I share with Immanuel Kant that I do see things in nature or see things in the world around me that are inherently wrong, and I could not have this innate idea unless it was truly right or wrong. And this innate idea, guys, is not subject to cross-examination. That's where most people will fail to understand that innate ideas are not subject. They're known innately. By definition, they're not subject to that. Now, I don't know how much of this you guys can absorb, most of you or some of you, but I hope that helped clear up your answer. All right. Yes, he is. He wrote a book on objective morality. That's from Alex Padron. Alex, all due respect, his book on objective morality is not going to shake the philosophy world. It's not going to shake the world of ethics. Okay, it's going to convince a lot of people who don't know much about philosophy. At the end of the day, he's appealing to aesthetics. Is it wrong? No, it's not wrong. He's just, if he can convince millions of people, then he can start his own. He can start his own movement. I just don't feel he's going to do that. The reason why he's not going to do that, in my opinion, is because he has a negativity towards him. He doesn't understand the most important thing about ethics. Here's what Sam Harris does not understand, that I think Jordan Peterson explained to him quite nicely. All your ideas of right and wrong come from religion, the thing he hates the most. Where do you think your idea of halal and haram comes from? Sin and vice and all these, it all comes from religion. If you don't believe me, go to the Supreme Court Justice. Go to America, find the Supreme Court Justice, and they have the 18 great lawgivers. Statues. They have statues of the 18 great lawgivers. Where do you think the Americans got their ideas when they established their state? They looked at all the past civilizations that had great rules. One of the great civilizations of the day, in the past, was the Islamic Golden Age, where many groups, Jews, Christians, agnostics, secularists, atheists, lived together in harmony. Who did they elect? Muhammad, Moses holding the Torah, Muhammad holding the Quran. They took many of Muhammad holding the Quran in the Supreme Court Justice. Look it up. You'll find it. It's well understood that no civilization in history, please correct me if I'm wrong, put it in the comment section, existed prior to religion. They all had a religion and then civilization occurred. We have no instance of a civilization and then religion. We only have a religion, right and wrong, community. Look, God drew this line in the sand, okay? Don't kill, don't murder, don't covet your neighbor's wife, don't lie, don't steal. If we all agree to this, we'll be a strong nation. Well, why shouldn't we lie or steal? No, don't philosophize. Stop. God said so. It's the ultimate authority. You cannot argue with this. Okay, great. We accept. All these ideas of right or wrong that he loves so much, that he holds so dear, that he thinks are so valuable to him, it wasn't easy to see the value of not lying. It wasn't easy to see the value of not stealing. Today, we know the value because we're looking in hindsight. So if, for instance, there are two nations. One nation, they promote lying, cheating, and stealing. Get ahead. Do whatever it takes, but get ahead. And the other nation, they say, no, don't lie, cheat, or steal to one another. Let's be fair. Don't covet your neighbor's wife and follow the commandments. Okay. Which nation will survive? Well, this nation on this hand here, they're going to lie, cheat, and steal from each other. It's amazing that even the crime syndicates eventually discovered that this is bad. Like, for instance, if you go into a den of thieves or if you go into jail and you're what they call a rat, if you're a thief that lies about another thief or tells on another thief, you're considered the lowest of the low, because as thieves, we cannot thrive. Even the thieves hate lying. Like, for instance, if you're a rapist, they got to put you in a separate wing in the prison, because even the thieves don't want, even the people, the worst of the worst, even the most harsh criminals, they think that, no, we can't live with this type of corruption. This is harmful to us as a group. So back to my original example. Okay, you can find this example in the Republic by Plato. This nation that promotes lying and cheating and stealing, they know that when I'm not looking at you, I know you're trying to steal from me. And when you're not looking at me, you know I'm trying to steal from you. So we're secretly always plotting against one another. By the time one of us thrives, this other group here has worked together and they've surpassed us by light years. The more corruption, the more the state is likely to fail over time. The less corruption, there's so many books written about how civilizations fail. The famous saying that civilizations don't die, they commit suicide. Why? Because they thrive, they go through a stage of maturity, and then they become really corrupt. Because everybody wants the goods. Everybody wants the resources. This nation, because they're so successful, they're rewarded with resources, and then they start to fight over the resources. Once a country becomes very rich and prominent and influential, it starts getting really corrupt. Usually, okay? Where do you think you learned all this? It comes from religion. Like it or not, every religion comes with a code of ethics. And it's all based on God. That's the history of ethics, gentlemen. Like it or not, that's what it is. And Sam Harris tries to sweep it under the rug and say, no, we don't need any of that. At least pay homage. At least say, look, I'm a secularist. I see the value of the Ten Commandments. I just think we should adapt them to our modern day. I think that, I've grown to become atheist now. I don't believe in the deity part no more. At least give a salute to where the civilization that you love so much, where it comes from. It comes from our religion. At the end of the day, this is where it comes from.